Uh,
Welcome everyone to the next episode of our podcast Beyond Tennis, where we try to discuss the mental aspect of the tennis game, and more often than not, we try to go beyond tennis. So my name is Ladislav Schwarz. I'm former professional tennis player, and I'm talking to Martin Blaho, who is also a former player, now a tennis coach, mental coach. So, hi Martin.
Hey, how are you? What's up?
I'm fine. So again, I prepared three topics, three questions. So I'm gonna put it out there for everyone so they can skip if they are interested in one particular question. So the first one is going to be today strict versus easygoing or permissive parents. Then the second, feelings after a loss, and then I'm gonna talk more about it in the question. And then the third one is how good a how good of a psychologist you have to be if you are a doubles player, like for one to each other.
Oh, interesting.
Uh, yes. So these are the topics. These are the questions. So let's get right into it, and let's start with the strict or then versus easygoing parents. And I mean it from the perspective that also in my own case I have more problem, or let's say I'm more on the side of the more permissive or easygoing parents, that for me it's kind of like a little bit hard to push the children. And but I can see also the pros and cons in both. And I would like to see your view or perspective on this topic. And mostly I mean it, of course, in the relationship with tennis and with parenting, and also maybe from coaching perspective. What are the pros and cons in both extreme, probably, or maybe even more specific? Uh, what am I missing, or how am I hurting my kids when where I'm not able to be strict as necessary most of the
Mhm.
time?
Mhm. Well, I would start by saying that for you specifically, right? Because we have two parents traditionally, and in your case, you're the father. So we have to also differentiate that there is a father and there's a mother. So I wouldn't put both parents into the same box because I think each has a different approach, or ideally, you want to have two different approaches. Um, that's one thing I want to say, and the second thing I will talk about is also that there's, the obviously you have different ages of the kids that require different level of strictness versus, easygoingness. Um, when it comes to the mother and the father, so for you, like when you ask the question, like what am I, not giving my child by being too easygoing, for example. There's this idea that is very cool and I find very interesting is that there's a fatherly love and a motherly love, and they're kind of different in a way. So the motherly love, the mother, and now we're talking of like ideals, let's say, right? And of course, both men and women have the kind of masculine and feminine. We all have it inside of us, but to make it simple, for the sake of this talk, the mother is more the unconditional love, right? So the mother is providing this feeling of whatever you do, whatever you go, if you're successful, not successful, you have a home where you are welcome, where you're loved, right? So it's providing more security and care. And the fatherly love and there's a tension. The spirit of the father, let's say, is of more you can be more than you are. The fatherly love is more about encouragement and building encouragement and building independence by saying, you have to grow up one day, you can be more than you are, and you have to like get out of here at one point, finally out of the house and go in the world. That's the fatherly love. And you need both. In an ideal place, you have in a healthy dynamic, you get both, right? And if you think about it, as even an adult, then the person has a beautiful balance between I'm not scared to go and try stuff because I always have a home and I'm always welcome. That's the motherly love. But I'm also not scared to try stuff because I feel I have the strength and the encouragement and the independence. That's the fatherly love. So to answer the question of as a father, what are you not giving a children if you're too easygoing is you're not providing them the necessary encouragement and building of independence that will help them go out into the world and not fear what will happen to me, etc. Right? Because if there's a difference, right? If a mother says to the kid, "Hey, like you're not good enough, like you can be better than you are," it's like it's a different energy. Like the mother's coming more, that's more coming from an anxious energy of like, I want you to be okay, so you need to get better just so you're okay. But if a father, the masculine energy is saying that, it's more like because the father biologically is not as connected, let's say, so it's more like whether you make it or not, like I'm gonna be okay. But in a good way, it's coming actually from this not anxious energy of like, hey, like you can do better than that. And there is something about that that's encouraging because the worst mistake I think we're doing, especially in the modern world in the Western culture, is that we are putting kids on a pedestal. We're making it like the child is the pinnacle of evolution, of like they're great, they're amazing already, which is a big mistake because they haven't even done anything yet, and we're making it as if they're done. So that's not giving them any space to then grow. The child needs to feel like, hey, like you're just a kid, but not just in a derogatory or like putting them down way. It's just, no, you haven't lived that long. You have plenty of time, and that means like you can become much more than you are now. And there's some that's cool, right? Because then the child can actually look forward to life. Because if they're 15 or 14 or whatever they are, and it's like this is the best time of your life, then what? Where do they go from there?
Mm,
And I see that a lot, right? A lot of kids like telling me, they look at the parents and they think like, oh, I don't want to become an adult because my parents are just miserable and all this. So it's a big deal for the parent to kind of show to the child of I who I am and what I'm doing, and I'm taking care of myself and this, and I have my own life. So to be an inspiration for the child, because one day they will be an adult also, so they can look up at the adult and say like, okay, I want one day I want to be an adult. Um, I don't know if that does that make sense?
mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting, and I'm also kind of admire the fathers who are like they're talking to their kids like, okay, you finished this tournament, and after that you're going to run for 3 kilometers, and you have to make the to to have the condition to be strong, and okay, before the practice you do this, after the practice you do this, and it's like it's like I wonder if it has something with the strict and or fixed and growth mindset in meaning like okay, you kind of like sacrifice the moment to be unpleasant so the future is brighter, or the other way around, it's like you sacrificing the future because you're doing it easier for the kids now, and they are not probably hating you, or they are not angry or whatever, but I wonder if there's a correlation. And one more thing that I also wonder, what is the like meaning, or is there any meaning or correlation with the way I was brought up, or how the parents, I mean, used to have it in their childhood. So they are trying to do the opposite, even though sometimes you just, as you say, I don't know how I would say, the baby with the bathtubs, that you throw the baby with also with
Put the
the
baby out with the bathwater, yeah.
exactly. So yeah,
I would
uh,
say I would jump in like because to address what you said earlier about the that if you're lenient, if you're easygoing, it's like you're sacrificing the future for the present, that you're not having as many fights. But I don't know if that's true actually, because I would say if you're having fights with your kid every time you tell them to do something and there is resistance, that means you already messed up, honestly speaking, in the raising of the child. That means there's already like there's no respect towards authority, right? And again, we're talking, of course, depends on the age group, et cetera, right? But the idea is that if you from a young age you teach them that like no means no, and if I say stop, you stop, that gets built in, and then they respect the fact that like I tell you to do something, I do it. And then of course you don't want to abuse that, because then the other part of the parent, like, you could be like the tyrannical parent who like the child is living in fear of like I do it because I'm not talking about child who's living in fear. I have to do it, otherwise, like I get beaten or whatever. Um, that's a authoritarian kind of tyrannical kind of way of raising the kid, which doesn't help them in the future also, because then they'll just find another, boss who will be like that, or somebody else who will be like that, because that's what they will learn. That's just what I know. So they either will find a partner who is like that, or a boss, or somebody. So what I'm talking about is respect. And respect means there's rules. Um, and it goes both ways. It's like I respect you as a child, so like I listen to you, I pay attention to you, but you respect me as as an elder, that like I know some things that you don't. And that doesn't mean you're less than me. It's just that's just how it is because of the experience and the age difference. Um, so there I would say, yeah, if the child's having a pushback and stuff, like you have to. There's a great idea I heard the other day. It was like it was about negotiation, that you have to negotiate with the kid from the get-go, even when the kid's small, right? Like they don't want to go to school, and you negotiate with them. Like, here's the rule. Like, we wake up and we go to school. You make a deal. Like, do we have a deal? And when they agree to it, and then they don't do it, whatever it is, then you have to address it. So you say, okay, and this great idea is that if they're not doing the thing that we negotiated, and by the way, negotiation isn't being tyrannical because we agreed on it together. That's the difference between tyrannical parent and a parent who's providing still boundaries and respect and structure, but it's providing structure together with the kid. Like, hey, buddy, there's a situation. This is what we're gonna do. Is that okay? Right? You talk about it together. And once you get it done and the child then doesn't do it, your job as a parent is to enforce it, right? Because you have to talk about it. And the idea is that there's three options. You have to say, okay, either we made a bad deal, so we have to rethink what we're doing, or you're being lazy and undisciplined. So then it's like you just have to, that's the father role. Like you can do better than that. Just like get your stuff together and just do it. Or it's too hard for you. So we have to figure out a way how to decrease the difficulty. Like you're not doing it like not because you're lazy or undisciplined, it's just it's hard for you to do. Um, and that's kind of the conversations you're gonna be having because you pose the question of strict versus easygoing, but I would say you don't want to be neither. You want to be a good negotiator, a good someone who talks with the child and establishes rules. Because at the end of the day, kids like that because they need to feel safe. And when they have structure, they feel safe. They don't want to do not put more responsibility on the kids than they can handle. What I mean by that is responsibility comes with authority and vice versa. Authority comes with responsibility. And what I see nowadays is that a lot of the kids are having more authority than their parents. The parents are giving the authority, like, what do you want to do? So the kid is taking authority, but the problem is with authority comes responsibility. So the parent doesn't realize that they're also giving up responsibility. However, they are the parent. So they have responsibility, but they just given it up by giving up authority. Because always the person in authority is also who has the responsibility. And it makes sense because if the person who has responsibility doesn't have authority, then it's chaos. And that's the key. So do not, as a parent, do not give up your responsibility. Do not put it on the child because that's a heavy burden. And you do put it on the child, but as we talked before, in the doses that are appropriate. So you're teaching them to take responsibility, but in the doses that are appropriate to their age and to their level and etc. And that those are the deals that I'm talking about. Those are the deals like you're gonna from now on, you're gonna help us clean the dishes. So when the mom cleans the dish, you're gonna wipe it, make it dry when the kid's small. And you include them in this so they suddenly have a job to do and they can feel you're building self-esteem in the kid because they feel like, okay, I'm doing something that's contributing to the family, and you make that negotiation with the kid like this is now what we're gonna do, and your responsibility now, like you're responsible for putting the forks on the table every time we have dinner. That'll be your job, your responsibility, because it's something they can do and something they can start feeling proud of, like I'm the one putting the forks on the table. So you're building confidence, building, but if you tell them you have to cook the dinner, that's too much responsibility.
Mm. Interesting. I mean, I was always like admiring, or I saw, I don't know if it was the Netflix episode where Runa's mother, she was former ballet dancer or whatever. Like she was talking about, or she was talking to Holger always that, okay, if you want to be a good tennis player, you have to work very, very hard because she knew how hard it is to be at the top of the game. And also I can see it in the parents who are quite strict. They go like, so you want to be a tennis player or not? So you either do it or not, you know? And I never somehow used it, like so okay, so let's play 2 times on Saturday in the morning, 2 hours, afternoon 1.5. And if you want to be a tennis player, you have to do it. And I mean, is that the right communication or the negotiation or
I don't think so because right, it's when you say do you want to be a tennis player or not against like what does that mean?
yeah.
It's too and
Or if you want to
also
be top 100 or if you want to be number one like you said, or whatever it is.
right, but it doesn't make sense, right? Because it's like it's not the proper negotiation because like just because you go do these sprints doesn't mean you're gonna become number one when you do
Right,
the sprints.
right.
So that's not a and of course after a while that stops, that doesn't work anymore. Like
Mm,
that's gonna work 10 times. And
right.
after a while the kid's gonna be like, well, then I don't want to be number one. So it works in reverse. It like it's totally counterproductive.
Mm. That's
Because
what I'm asking.
yeah, because the problem is that I mean the approach is right. It's the idea is right that like to get to a goal you have to work for it. I
Right,
mean, sure, that's the right sentiment. The problem is the goal is poorly specified. You can't use the ultimate goal all the time. You can't negotiate in the moment now for like something that should happen 10 years from now. That there's no link that you can create in your mind, right? So that's why the number one thing, which is should be the job of mostly coaches, which is not happening a lot, whether it's tennis coaches or conditioning coaches, especially conditioning coaches, much easier because it's much easier to measure kind of like how fast you are, how strong you are. There's like clear metrics. So you should have goals that are, 3 months out. 3 months is a good 3 months, like 3 months, 3 to 6 months is like a good window. Whereas like long enough to where you can see it, like short enough where you can see it and long enough where you have time to work on it. So yes, the attitude of like you have to work hard to achieve a goal is good. But what kind of goal? The goal has to be achievable because then if it's not achievable, then all it's teaching you is you're gonna work hard and not achieve anything. And then then nobody's gonna sign up for that. Like the kids are not dumb. Like that's why I'm saying it's not gonna work. So that's just guilt tripping. That's just kind of like that's going from the point of view of like you're being lazy.
yeah.
And I don't believe, to be honest, me personally, I don't believe there's such a thing as lazy. I don't believe in laziness. Laziness is just lack of reason, like reason, lack of why. Like why do I do have to do this?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
lack of vision. It's literally it's the lack of goal. Because we know from psychology that when you like achieve the goals you set, or at least when you have a feeling that you're going in the right direction towards a specified goal, that's what gives you positive emotion. Positive emotion fundamentally is evolutionarily it has been designed to give your brain a feedback mechanism of like I'm going in the right direction, so I should feel good about that, so I keep going in that direction, so I get to the goal.
Right.
But you see what there needs to be a goal, which means no goal, no positive emotion. So the people who are don't have positive emotions or are kind of stuck or don't have joy, it's usually because either they don't have a goal or the goal is like too exactly, I want to be number one in the world. It's like that's not a goal right now for
Oops.
when you're 14 years old. or 12 or 10 or whatever, right? The goal needs to be achievable. So you can feel, am I going towards it or not? And then if I feel I'm getting positive emotion, I'm getting reinforcement, and I want to do more of it. I want to do more of it, and the more I want to do, the more I'm getting towards the goal, so I get even more positive emotion. I want to do even more of it, and you're getting on an upward cycle.
Right.
So this is the fundamental error is that there are no goals. Like it's so simple, but nobody does it. Like when you ask players, like, what is your goal? And they say, I want to win a Grand Slam, I'll be a number one. Okay, like that's great as a vision. That's a vision. That's not a goal. Like, what's your goal for this year, for this season, for this month, for this training? That's the real question. Because then you can feel good about yourself.
Right.
You know?
Perfect. I think we yeah discussed this good enough. So let's go to the second question. uh, and that was I was having a conversation with my son after a 7-6 in the third loss. And kind of like he lost the first set, then he wasn't feeling fit or whatever. And we were having discussion, uh, how do you feel the comparison about between you lose the first set 6-2, then you kind of like give up in the second set and you lose 6-2 again, and you tell yourself, okay, today I didn't feel good, it wasn't my day, I'm gonna beat that guy next time, versus you lose the 6-2 of the first set, then you give your all, you try to figure out different ways how to win, then you win the second set and you fight until the end and you lose 7-6 in the third. It's still loss. And what my son told me, that in the first example where he somehow protected his ego, and on the like first look it might seems like it doesn't hurt that much, but somehow deep down he said it's like the knife somehow
Mm.
putting in, like like stabbing your heart, because deep down you know that you could have done more and you like fail, or you didn't try that hard. And when you lose 7-6 in the third and you gave your all, there's no knife, like, because you know you clean in front of the mirror, you know that you give your best, but there's still like you disappointed, of course, but it's like different. And that's with my words or with the words of my son, and I would like to understand, like put it into the maybe correct, like things to understand it even more. What is happening there?
Yeah, it reminds me of a great quote by a guy named Jim Rohn, who was like one of the original teachers of Tony Robbins, and is a great speaker. And he used to say that discipline weighs grams and regret weighs tons. And it's exactly that. It's because it takes huge discipline to give your effort every time. It takes discipline. It takes you to say to yourself, I'm gonna do it anyway. Even though I don't feel like it, I'm not playing well, the guy's playing great, it's hot outside, I'm just not feeling the ball. Like whatever. That it's pure discipline. Because obviously, if you go purely emotionally and impulsively, based on how you feel, you don't feel like being out there. You just don't, you know. So it's pure discipline. And he said, and it has a weight, like he said, like, but compared to regret, and that's what your son was referring to. That's the knife, that feeling of like, well, I I I I, I wasn't all there. And I think what's happening there, in my opinion, is kind of, it's like, we have the saying that you gave your all.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually what it really means. It means that when you give your all, that means all your different parts. And I talked about this on previous episodes of how we're not just one person, but we have many sub-personalities. We have different parts of us, that are there. That's why we have inner conflicts, because the inner conflict, what you hear about a lot, is that two or more of your parts are actually in conflict. It's exactly one part is saying like, come on, try a few more points. The other part is saying, well, fuck it, let's just go home. Um, that's the conflict. And that's when we feel shattered, we feel separated, we don't feel whole. And I think what happens when you give it your all, that means you literally gave it your all, meaning like you brought all your parts together and tried. That's why you actually feel okay. Even though you're not happy, you lost or whatever, but you come off the court feeling whole because you brought all yourself together. There was no inner conflict. Because if you don't, you come off the court and you feel you're in pieces. There is the inner conflict. There is that one part of you saying, like, well, you could have done better. And there's the other part saying, no, you couldn't anyway. And there's another part saying this and that. And you feel, and that's why, like, you go home and you have all these voices in your head and feel good and all of that. And you don't sleep good just simply because of all these inner conflicts. But when you give it your all, you sleep like a baby because at the end of the day, you know that that's who you are. You were yourself fully, everything. And and today it wasn't enough, okay, but you're being yourself. It's the same thing like someone giving a speech in front of people and just being authentic, being vulnerable, saying from the heart what they really want to say. And doesn't matter how people respond to it, not respond to it, they leave and they feel good because they spoke the truth. Instead of somebody who is like trying to be diplomatic and kind of saying what they think people want to hear or just to not lose a face or this and that person leaves and the problem is with lying when you're not being authentic, when you're not like fully there, the bigger question is like, who are you? And that's what's the real ghost. That's what the real skeleton is in the closet, so to speak, is that's what haunts you is like, well, who is this person that's not playing? Who is like, 'cause that's because I know that like I want to play. I like tennis. I want to win. I want to, but there's something that's like who is that? But when it's all of you, then you know like that's this is me, you know. Um, yeah, and one more thing I would say to that connects to the previous question is like, where does discipline come from, right? That would fit with this. Okay, so when we have this, okay, we need to, where does it come from? And it connects with what I was saying to answer your previous question. Discipline comes from the fact that you're given discipline from the parents as a child, like you're being taught what real authority means and responsibility. Because if you have real authority, then you can also be an authority to yourself, that you can tell yourself to do something. And that's discipline. What discipline literally is are you able to do something that you don't want to do in the moment. And for that, you have to be able to have respect. You have to be able to respect yourself and have those parts that are inside you respect you as the authority, right? Like all those voices they're saying like, ah, just let's just go home. Like, fuck, it's too hot. Like you're not gonna win anyway. He's playing too good, or they cheated you on a call. Like we have a story to tell, so that's great. We don't have to try. All those voices are there, all those temptations, because your body is like tired and this, and you want to cry and you feel bad for yourself and all this. Like all those little parts are there. Those are the inner children, let's say. Those are the underdeveloped, those parts of you who, and that's where is there the mature authority part of you who tells all those voices like, hey guys, I hear you, I see you, I understand, it's tough, but we're doing this. And there is something comforting about that. That's why that person sleeps good, because they know that in a different situation somewhere, there's gonna be something happening, and they have that part of them who can tell them like, no, you're doing this anyway. And that creates feeling of peace and safety. Because if you don't have that, then you are a victim of your own feelings. Then you're in chaos because you don't know at any moment something will trigger some feeling that is gonna take over and be like, no, let's just run, let's just not do this, let's give up. And and you don't know when that's gonna happen, so you don't have control. So you're in chaos. You're living in you're a victim to your own temptations and emotions. So that's
Yeah. Wow. I mean, this one was great. There was a lot of, yeah, a lot of gold there. Uh, good. So let's go to the next topic, or the last one. And I also at the tournament saw, or I was just wondering, just looking at the some of the doubles matches, that how important the chemistry between the players is, and how often it happens that the one guy is not playing that good, and the other one is not helping me that much because he's maybe complaining, or they cannot really like push each other.
so sorry to jump in. I apologize. But I feel there's one more thing I need to say that's important when it comes to discipline, what we were saying before. Sorry, it just came to me.
Yeah, no problem.
Um, because I feel like discipline is one of those misunderstood things that kind of just looks hard. I think it's not sold properly to kids. The idea of discipline is it has a bad marketing, let's say. Because all I said before, like it makes sense, right? But then you think like, okay, but discipline's hard. Like what does it actually give me? And I touched on it a little bit, the peace of mind. And but the other thing I think for especially for like a young guy or a kid is I think you have to understand that discipline is a superpower, because what it gives you is when you think of doing something, you actually do it. So what it gives you is trust that like if I decide to do something, it will happen. It's literally like a magical power of like as a magician decides like now I want to create this, and they do the one and then it happens. Well, that's what discipline is, because it's like if you have discipline, it's like once you decide to do something, then you do it, and then it appears. Not maybe like a magician immediately, but within some reasonable amount of time, it's there. And I think that's what people need to understand about discipline. And also it's a skill like any other. It's only hard at the beginning. It's a habit. It's a habit of, are you able to, when you make a decision in your brain, to actually follow through? That I decided to do this, then I actually do it. Or rather, not decide. Because yeah, man, it's a superpower. It's and I think that's what kids and that's what people need to hear. Because discipline otherwise just seems like it's just hard. And if you think of it as hard, then it's there's much more resistance towards the concept as a whole. But because the benefits are not clear. But what if you could have what you wanted? You know, that's the question you gotta ask yourself. What if I told myself this is what I want and you could actually have it? And the way to actually have it is discipline because you have to figure out, okay, what the steps are and what you have to do, etc. Like, yes, the strategy also there is important and to figure it out. But without discipline, no matter how good your strategy is, if you just don't get it done, it just doesn't happen. So, and it's a skill like any other, like from a young kid, and that's exactly why what I said before about the father, about like what is the gift of the father, is actually teaching discipline to the kids, is providing those rules, and we stick to the rules. Like we make a deal, and you follow through on the deal. You do it, and I'm gonna be on your back that you do it because I'm teaching your brain that we made an agreement, and therefore you do it, even if you don't feel like it on that day. So you're teaching that skill. If you let go, you're not giving your child the gift of discipline. And everything they will want to do in their life will be so much harder to accomplish without
Mm.
this skill.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, great. You again you put together the one with the two the first two questions. Perfect. So let's get to the third one and try to connect that. So the question was how good of a psychologist you have to be, or it's good to be, or just maybe what are the basic maybe rules what is happening in the chemistry of the double players and what should maybe because we are talking a lot about what should coaches and parents do but maybe also for the players I mean what are the um, basic tricks to bring your partner back into the good state where you know he can play good or yeah let's explore the doubles a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, again, I will start with a quote that comes to mind. I mean, two actually, two ideas. The first one is I think it's from Tony Robbins. It's like you can only you can only influence someone when you are influenced. You can only get someone else excited if you're excited. You can only motivate someone when you're motivated. So again, it always starts from you. Even with the partner, like if you're down, you're not gonna get them up. So the first thing I would say is lead by example. The other thing I would say is, and the second idea was from Brad Gilbert's book, From Winning Ugly, I believe. And he had a great idea there that said, even for singles, that he said that be a great doubles partner to yourself.
Yeah.
I think I think it's a disservice nowadays that a lot of kids I see are not playing doubles anymore. That's kind of been like very like split. You know, like when I was young and when you're young, it was like normal. You go to a tournament, you play singles, doubles. That's just you just play everything. Now it's like I see some kids like they just go for the singles and just don't play doubles. And I think there's a very vital skill that you're missing out on, even for singles, if you're not playing doubles. And exactly what we're talking about here is you're able to externalize, because you have the partner, how to get out of a tough situation emotionally. Because it's easier to do with another person in a sense that, like, because we are so much harder on ourselves always than we are on other people. That's why with other people, we're much nicer on other people than we are on ourselves. And also talking and letting things out gets it off our shoulders, make it easier. So for example, so what you're teaching your brain again, whatever you do repeatedly becomes a habit, skill. And doesn't matter if you're saying it out loud or to yourself inside. So if you're playing a lot of doubles, for example, and every time there's a tough point, then your partner is getting down or demotivated, and you go like, "Hey, don't worry, let's go." Well, guess what? You will say to yourself in singles. If you do that enough times, the moment you're gonna be in your singles and you're gonna get down on yourself, you're gonna be like, "Hey, don't worry, let's go." You're practicing a beautiful skill there that is much easier to practice in doubles than in singles, because in singles we're not so used to talking to ourselves. The self-talk is more unconscious because we're not used to talking to ourselves on a day-to-day basis, but we're used to talking to other people. So practicing what to say to oneself, whether it's the partner or to oneself, to yourself, doubles is a great practice for that, and it comes more naturally because you're actually dealing with another person that we're talking to also outside of tennis, outside of the court. So I think it's a beautiful practice and skill to kind of bridge from the regular world when you speak to other people to singles where you speak to yourself. So I think it should be playing more doubles, and there it comes natural because usually you're not gonna be mean to your partner. And if you see kids who like, or people who are mean to their partners, that's really tough. And I feel really sad and empathetic towards them, because then you can only imagine how mean they are to themselves. Like what's their inner monologue or inner dialogue with themselves, and they're with themselves, like the partner is going to leave after the match, but that person's with themselves all the time. So but most people you see, they want to pick the other person up. So
Mm.
it's a good skill to learn.
Yeah. And I mean, I can imagine if you like understand the, maybe the psychology, or maybe like if you can talk to other people a little bit, like it must be, or the best doubles player must be, I mean, good at lifting up people.
Mhm.
No?
Yeah, I think you see with the best doubles players, they're so in sync, and that's why there's this thing that you have to like replay with the same person so many times that you become like the same unit. But not only, people think just because like tennis wise, because you have to know, when this situation, this person has a tendency to do that and this, like that too, of course. But also emotionally, like you become in sync. How do you balance each other's emotional states? Like you know what to do, you know what to say to the person, how to, in what tone, how you, and you don't necessarily consciously like learn that. It's just by spending time together, you you figure it out, right? And just like any, and I can imagine though that it's for the pros that like, like they play together doubles all the time. It's literally like having a relationship.
Yeah.
Like they must have a really like I would bet money on it that the best doubles pairs that are in the world are really good at like resolving relationship problems outside of the court.
Mm.
Like that's way more important. And again, like I said before, I think that's so useful because then you can also resolve relationship problems with yourself, potentially, because there are similar skills, and because it's in the same environment, it can translate over if you think about it. It doesn't have to. A lot of people don't think about that. When that's why that line in Brad Gilbert's book was so good. It's like be a good doubles player to yourself. That's a that's a great line to think about it that way. Like, how do I talk to myself? What would I
Yeah.
say to my doubles partner in this point? I feel pressure. That's the self-talk is in sports psychology. That's a very studied topic and very crucial. The self-talk, like what are we saying to ourselves? So yeah, practicing that dialogue and what to say is key. And what I said before is if you want to influence someone, you have to be influenced. You have to lead by example first. You have to bring the energy because, as I told you in the past when we are talking, that doubles and singles are like two different sports. Like I use the analogy of soccer and American football, like football and
Mhm.
American football. The singles is like the European football, and it's more open and more creative and kind of this, and the doubles like American football because it's like short points. It's much more like you serve there and then I do this, and it's like I call the play and we have to execute the call. It's a very, but that's why it's like it's much more dynamic. It's much more short bursts. It's like sprints, you know. So you need the energy. You need to be up with the energy all the time because you also need fast reflexes. You need to be alert much more. So it's a completely different psychology, a different dynamic. It's a different, like it's almost like a different sport, uh, different mentality that doubles requires compared to singles. But it's cool to play also doubles, especially as kids, because you broaden your range, you can practice shots that you would not normally ever practice in singles. You can practice being under pressure at an important point, but you only have to hit cross courts. And like, for example, can you maintain the rally cross court, which in singles would never happen because someone would just hit line at least once and then you have to. But here is
Mhm.
like, so it's much more you practice how to hit passing shots, how to return, like returns. It's a perfect practice for returns doubles, right?
Mhm.
Because you know that you don't think like you have a specific goal. Like I have to hit there so the guy cannot pass. So it locks you in. It makes you much more alert to the serve and much more focused on the return. Whereas in singles, because you have kind of like I can just return somewhere and then we start. That's what creates much more that you're gonna miss some of the returns because again, you're teaching your brain that like I don't have to be that focused every time. But in doubles, you have to be focused every time. So your brain is learning again something you can then take into singles also that every return I'm stepping on the line and I'm like locked in, like I pick my spot and I'm going for it on the return, just like in doubles.
Right. I mean, and also one more interesting thing in doubles, actually, what I figure out in paddle, that it's kind of interesting the scoring system when there's no wet,
Hmm.
and it's it's kind of like it took me a while to understand that if it's 40-30 for the serving team and I'm on the returning side, is not that far away like in the tennis doubles, maybe, or in the singles. Like the in the singles, if you 40-30 or 40-15, let's say 40-15 is maybe a better example. If you returning and it's 40-15 for the server, it's like, I mean, it's almost impossible to win the game. Maybe in doubles, you have a little bit more chances. And in the paddle, you have, I mean, it's almost like it's not nothing happening. But you have to like set your mind for it, because if you just play your games And then when it's 1540, okay, just give them or just try something. It's gonna like show. So if I play the paddle, it's like every point counts, or the important of the scorings is different than in the tennis doubles. So that's just my observation or in some important thing. Or but even though watching the doubles under 16 in Slovakia, I just felt like everybody can beat everybody because there's a not that there's no wet scoring system like everywhere on the ATP, but there's a third set match tiebreak.
Mm.
So, I mean, it used to be like if there's 60-40 in singles, like difference, in doubles is like 52-48 because anything can happen. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would say though is what you said about the 40-15, that like when it's 40-15 and or you're like 15-40 down, that feels like it's too far away. I would say like if I was working with someone and like they tell me that, I would say like let's reframe that because like let's look at it differently. Because I would look at it, okay, 15-40 down, you only need to win 2 points to be at zero. That's what it is, no? You're 15-40 down, it's only 2 points to be a level. Because once you get to deuce, it's you're literally you both are 2 points away from the game. So you erase the any advantage. Yes, from your point, it might look like, okay, 15-40, I understand what you mean. It's like I have to win like 4 points in a row to win the game, and he only has to win one in this point.
Right.
But it's not true. It's like I have to win 2 points in a row, and he has to win one to get to deuce, to get to zero. Because once we're at deuce, then it's 2-2. So this is just like a simple but this is a good example of if I work with someone, how you change that belief of how you think. Like if you're in the game and you're 15-40, you can either look at it this way and feel kind of like, uh, it's tough. Or you can look at it like it's fine, it's only 2 points to get to deuce.
Right. But I mean, I would also argue that it changes also with the player type and also with the surface and also with everything. Because if it's 1540 and or yeah, you are 1540 down and you are Pete Sampras, you just push the ball to the fence, and you don't care. Not only you don't want the other player to play, so you just I mean you don't play at all. You just miss it directly. So, but it's different topic or it's different.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure. If you
yeah,
if you're Nadal, you're thinking of what I was saying is like I just have to
exactly,
hang in
exactly,
there 2 points and get to deuce, and I'm again in a position to potentially break. Like it's like every point counts kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. But if you Nadal or Opelka or Milos Raonic, it's different.
yeah. It goes back to the time. Are you a big server or are you a good runner?
Yeah.
It's like that's the main kind of right. If you're a big server, then you don't care so much because you're gonna hell hold potentially your next game. And if you're a good runner, then it's like, no, I'm gonna lock in every point and make the points long. And that 1 point that you have to win compared to mine too is like given that 1 point costs you so much that it's not so easy for you.
Mm,
So it's yeah, you're right. It's interesting how it's gonna create different
yeah.
view.
Yeah. I maybe I have just one more observation. Maybe you, yeah. From the tournament I was now in, there was a player who I mean, I know him and I know he's like that, but kind of like he reminded me that I remember, I don't know if it was true or it was a story like 20 years ago where when Boris Becker used to play and they said that some kind of, I don't know, guy who can sense the energy or whatever, or maybe a painter somehow felt it, or I don't know what was it, but I just remember that it was that when Boris Becker was playing, his presence was like 3/4 of the court, and just the 1/4 was for the opponent. Like all eyes on me, and the presence was so big, and you
Mhm.
can kind of like everyone can feel the big or very small presence of the player. So, but there was this one guy whose presence is just unbelievable in the way like how he's fighting and pushing himself and how hard it is to win a point or game against him. Although he's not like shooting you out of the court or the other opposite, just pushing the ball back in, but he just has this nice mix of the covering the court and playing offensive where when he has to and playing defensive where he's not supposed to. But what's what's like amazing for me, it's like the consistency, and it's like, or put everything what I said, just put it just easier. It's like you don't get any present at all. And not the present like mistake, not even the present like he gives you something short or whatever, like it's like, you know it's kind of like playing Nadal, that if I don't hit almost, or if I don't play almost perfect 4 points, there's no way I'm gonna win the game. There's no way. Like, and the point might be, or every point might be 10, 15 times over the net. So, and he brings it like every time. And I just wonder, I mean, he's very good, top two player in Slovakia in his age group, and what's missing is only a serve probably. So he can be good, but I mean, for me, it's like it's very. I don't know how to call it, admiring or like it's nice how he plays. Yeah, the presence is, big.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's the presence is like a tough word. Like, what do we mean by that? But I guess I understand what you're saying. Um, and the first thing that came to my mind, now we're just exploring here, obviously, as always. Uh, and it connects. It's beautiful. You asked that because I think it connects well to all the other things we're talking about today. Because it comes back to the idea of discipline. Um, because when you said that he kind of plays like Nadal and he doesn't give you any presents and stuff like that, like we have to look again at discipline, right? Because it's literally the fact, and it's not only discipline of the kind of discipline of like have a discipline to like go run or wake up, but it's the similar idea because it's discipline of focus,
Yeah,
discipline of mind. I don't let my mind wander.
yeah,
I don't let my thoughts go somewhere else or my attention. It's a discipline of attention. I can keep my attention here and now the whole match, which means that every point I'm there, present with my attention. So it's a discipline of focus, um, which when you talk about the presence, I think presence comes from the word present because presence also is that I'm present here. You can feel somebody's presence when they're there. Like if somebody's looking at you and you can see that they're fully there 100% and they're nowhere else, because you know those people that you talk to them and they're like listening to you, but you can the way
Yeah,
the metaphor I use is like is that they is like a computer, like they have other windows are open. There are
yeah,
too many
yeah,
other windows are opened on the sides, you know. It's like the people who are emailing and watching a YouTube video here and and responding to WhatsApp there and like, you know, so it all fits, kind of brings together all the points I made today of this idea of all of you being there, giving it your all, which increases your presence because all of you is there instead of just some of you being there. So automatically you're more, all of you is present. So you have bigger presence. And for that to happen, that requires that discipline that I talked about, that you bring all of you, all the parts of you, and say, like, hey, I know it's tough, I know this, but we're here, we're doing this. And that's why no gifts and no easy mistakes happen, etc., etc., right? That's why there's no wavering going up and down in the level, because all of him is there every point. Because going up and down in the level is basically that like some part of you is missing in some points, and then you have to kind of like bring it back. And so I think that's what presence is, and that's why we admire it. It's what I said earlier, because it's not easy, and it's what, you know, at the end of the day, it's what separates us from animals. Like that's in evolution, that's our miracle of evolution for humans, that animals don't have discipline, even though they do repetitive things. So you think like, oh, they're the most disciplined because they do it over and over again, but it's not, they're programmed. They don't know any other way. But we as humans, we have a choice. And that's why it's that much more admirable when like you choose to do it even if you don't feel like it. And I would say that's what maturity is in a way. You know, we talked at the beginning about the kids having a role model and looking up and, you know, looking forward to being adults. Well, that's what being, you know, an adult means, and that's what being autonomous means. That's what, you know, as an adult, like being an adult is so much better than being a kid in a sense that like you have freedom to do whatever you want, which a child doesn't have. Um, but most people like are using that freedom to do whatever you want. And for a lot of people, the answer is no, because again, as I said before, they're a victim to their impulses, because you only do whatever you, because it's not about doing whatever you want, it's about doing what you want. And that's the difference. The immature person does whatever they want. Those are those little sub-personalities asking, like the mature person, the one with discipline, does what they want. And they're able to do what they want because they have that discipline to do so, because they decided I want this, and then they do it. And that's why we admire that. That's why that person is present. That's why they have a presence. That's why they're not all over the place. And that's why they also achieve. Because as I said before, it's a superpower, because achieving something is and we can finish on this, I guess, is like I think it was Roosevelt is a famous quote, right? He said that you know we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. And to create any habit, it requires some discipline, long enough for something to become a habit. And then it's easy. It doesn't need that much discipline, but it needs the discipline at the moment, at the beginning, when the other habit, because about creating habits, and we can talk about it maybe some other day also, but creating habits, a lot of people think I'm going to create a new habit. What you don't understand is that's not true. You actually have to replace an old habit. with a new habit because you don't have like a empty space there that you have to create something new. You're already doing something in that time, in that space that you have to replace with this new thing. That's the proper way to look at it. That means something has to die. Something has to, you have to erase something to put this new thing in place. And do you think that thing is just wants to die? No, it's going to create resistance. It's going to fight for survival, literally. It's going to be like, no, like, let's start tomorrow. That's that voice, because that thing doesn't want to die, that old habit. And that requires a discipline of saying, like, no, like, we're doing this and over again until you replace it. And that applies to anything from waking up in the morning to whatever, to focusing every point.
Or addiction.
Exactly, and Nadal was a perfect example of, like I said, like I think if you told Nadal to like not try on a tennis court, I don't think he would be even able to do that. That would be probably a very hard thing for him to do, to
Mm.
you know. So yeah, that's just about presence and discipline and and self-esteem, and confidence, because self-esteem, it's I heard this beautiful thing I have to share with you. Last thing the other day is like, what is self-esteem? We hear about self-esteem like a lot, and self-esteem is like, how do you see yourself? How do you esteem yourself? And how do you judge yourself? So how do you see yourself? And so first, to be able to judge yourself, first you need some criteria, some rules, right? So that's the first thing is the first question of the parents teach the kids about like what the deals they make and negotiation they make. They create like what are the rules that we have, and then are we sticking to them as a discipline? And if we are, that means according to my own criteria, to the rules I create for myself. That's the number one thing. Create rules for yourself and then stick to them. And then you will have high self-esteem. Because according to your own criteria, you're doing what you said you would do. If according to you're not doing what you said you would do, then you have low self-esteem. And you can't trust yourself. Why? Because if you repeatedly say something you will do and then you don't do it, why would you trust yourself the next time you say you're going to do something? Immediately, you just think of something you want to do, and some part of you already knows that it's not going to happen anyway.
Mm.
So that's why it's a superpower. That's why this discipline thing is so key, and it's self-esteem, self-trust, presence, everything comes. And that's why I keep talking about it, because I think for whoever would listen to this, it's what I said, discipline has a bad marketing. Um, you know, it's just looked at as like that's just so that's hard. But it doesn't have to be. It's a skill like any other, it's a habit.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So
Cool.
that was the next episode. And yeah, we're looking forward for the next one.
Thank you again for the great questions.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, see you. Bye.
Have a good one. Great.